In this video, we're going to take a look at all the new features for Dynamo for Revit 2023. That sounds interesting and you want to see what's new, what's changed, or what might have broke? Check out the rest of this video. Alright, so we're just in Revit in the sample model, pretty much the same sample model that we always open for things like this. Pretty simple. Dynamo is still on the Manage tab in the Visual Programming panel, so nothing's changed there. Go ahead and open it up. And rather than just go feature by feature and kind of work through them, we're actually going to build out a graph along the way and talk about the features as we encounter them. I thought that'd be a little more interesting. So that's what we're going to do today. So the first thing I do typically when I start working with a new version of Dynamo is I'll build out a graph that I'm pretty familiar with. In the case of today's example, we're going to rename views in the project browser. One way to collect views is a element types node. So to get started, I searched for element types to try to find the dropdown. It doesn't show up. If we search this in the library as well, we'll see that it also doesn't show up. Element type doesn't show it either. One thing that changed is under the Revit selection category is we now have an option in here called all elements of class. That's a little bit different now, and it caught me by surprise, so I wanted to make you aware. Why that's called class, I have a whole video talking about that. I'll link that below, but just be aware, if you have graphs that have element types nodes in them, I believe they'll migrate for you automatically. So we'll see that we have an all elements of class and element classes nodes available to us. In this case, I want to work with plan views, so we'll go to view plan and we'll connect this. Another big change is the new color of the nodes. So it's an overall change in how the nodes look and how the whole interface looks. So that's the first thing you'll notice. This probably isn't completely new to you if you've seen some of the sandbox changes. If you're not aware, Dynamo Sandbox is an environment where you can test changes before they're live in Revit or anything like that. So that's one of the things that you'll notice right away. It's a really welcome change, I think. It's really nice, and it just looks pretty good too. So with this all elements of class node, we are collecting all of the floor plan elements. This does include things like view templates, so that's another thing to keep in mind. Luckily, under the views category and the view, we have an option in here to see if a view is a view template. This node's been in there for a little bit, but it used to only be available in Clockwork, and it's an out-of-the-box node now, so that's pretty cool. So we're going to place that node, and we'll go ahead and start creating some groups as well. So we'll connect this, and we'll press Control G to create a group. Another big change, the way groups look. Groups are now collapsible, groups have a title, and groups have a description as well. Pretty cool. This feature I see being one of the best features within the new version of Dynamo. If I were to remove this item from the group, it is collapsible and we get inputs and outputs for that as well. So that's really awesome. This is a feature that we've been asking for a while. In addition to that, we are able to drag nodes into a group and it will add them automatically. So we'll go ahead and title this Collect Plan Views. So I tend to title these this way now as I've been working in this version of Dynamo. The big title is the overall idea of what it's doing, and the description goes into more detail. So that's just kind of how I've been using it. I don't know if there's a right or wrong way. One thing to keep in mind is you can run out of space on the big title if you make it too long. So you are limited to what it will render in that title. So that is something to keep in mind. And what we'll go ahead and do is we'll build out a filter here for this view template. So filtering by Boolean mask, one of my favorite nodes in Dynamo altogether. We have a Boolean mask from our view template, and we want to filter out our original elements. So now we have view templates on the in output and views on the out output. Pretty cool. Let's go ahead and create another group here. We'll change this one's color just for the heck of it. Filter out view templates. I'll probably put the out view templates in the description. So there we have it. Another cool feature is the ability to pin the wires. So if you hover on wires, you actually get a lot more information now from these wires. This is awesome. This is something I didn't even notice right away. But we know what is connecting into the node on each side of the node. So we see we have all elements of class connecting, and then it also connects to view as view template. And you see what's getting fed through the wire now. This is huge for debugging. I love this feature. So this is really cool. You will also see that we have the ability to click on some icons. So this eye will add an inline watch node. Watch nodes are resizable, by the way. So that is a new feature that's, I think it's been in Dynamo for a little bit now too, but that is resizable. That does not stick between opens and closes of the file though. So that's something to keep in mind. Another new feature is the ability to right click on wires and break connections or select connected. So we'll go ahead and break that connection, and I'll just remove this watch node altogether. And if we hover on the wire, we'll also notice that we have a pin icon. So if I pin it, we now have these little pin icons. In other programming, visual programming softwares, that's called a relay. And Archilab actually has a relay in it as well. So you don't need that anymore because we have pins. So that's really nice. We've had them accessible to us, but now we have built-in pins. So that's really nice to have. Another change, so in the event that you have a node, so this node kind of looks like a custom node, for instance. If I were to add a note and drag this into the group, first of all, that adds to the group. And then I can name this used to be from Clockwork. You select a node and a note. You can right click on a note now and pin it to a node. This feature is awesome as well. This is a big one. And I look forward to implementing this in Monocle when we add our package nodes above custom nodes. So that one's really useful, and now it moves with the node, that note. Really useful feature as well. When you collapse the group, it keeps all that stuff contained. Collapsible groups are going to be a fun one to use too. In addition to this pinning ability, renamed nodes, so if we name this filter view templates, rename nodes are now a more subtle indication. So if you recall, when they added the little error looking thing that said renamed, I hated it. It drove me crazy. And part of the reason is because Rhythm has the ability to rename Rhythm nodes as they're placed. So Rhythm, when you place a node, it adds a prefix onto the node that says Rhythm. That way you know where it came from. Coincidentally, other package authors do the same. It results in a renamed node though. Rhythm is fully open source. The other packages I've seen doing that are not open source. They're closed source, which is kind of interesting. So they took what we're doing in Rhythm and used it in closed source packages. So that's kind of an interesting thing. I'll link Rhythm's GitHub down below if you want to see the source code. Completely open. Keep that in mind. And yeah, with that renamed node, you can now hover on that blue dot and it tells you what it was renamed from, which is really great. Hovering on the node still tells you the node name as well. So I really, really like that subtle change. And you'll see a lot of these little colors throughout the interface as well as you're working. These little colored changes indicate things. So in the case of my current graph, I have a yellow indicator saying I haven't saved it yet. So let me go ahead and save this real quick. So I'll just save this in my documents. We'll go ahead and I have another version of this file, so we'll save over. And now that yellow icon is gone and we're saved, we're good to go. In addition to some of these just node changes and these little color indications, the UI has a pretty general overhaul. These menus were all there in Dynamo 2.12, but we have a few new features as well. If we go to the help menu, we have interactive guides now. So I wish these existed when I started using Dynamo because I opened Dynamo for the first time and I didn't know what the heck I was looking at. So this is huge. You can work through these guides and they navigate through and show you how to use Dynamo. Really, really awesome. And I think this is going to be great for new users. So be sure to share that with everyone that you're helping to learn Dynamo as well. There are a few different interactive guides in there, and hopefully they open this up further to where we can add more for workflows potentially. That'd be really cool is if you have a Dynamo graph and you can assign a interactive guide to it. That would be sweet. So hopefully they get that added, but that's there for you as well. In addition to some of this, I'm in Run Automatic right now. So that's something that I just always do. By default, 2.13 or 2.13 is in run manual. Under the preferences menu, we have the ability to change that. I changed mine to automatic. I tend to change to manual before I do a big change, so I like to run in automatic normally. There are a lot of different changes in here, or different settings. Some of them aren't accessible quite yet, so I look forward to seeing what comes out of those. We have experimental features like the node autocomplete and everything like that. So all that's now in there too in that preferences menu. Speaking of that node autocomplete, if we disconnect a input port and we click on it, we do have some options for inputs. So it starts to try to predict as to what you would connect to it. I don't use this a whole lot. I find myself turning it on more than I need to by accident, but it is there if you want it. It's been in Dynamo for a little bit, and I think it's finally getting to a maturity level that actually works decently. So I just clicked on the output of that view templates filter, and I have watch nodes as a suggestion. It's a pretty good suggestion. So I think it gets better over time as well. Another feature that was added in Dynamo 2.12 are some of these extensions. So we have the documentation browser that shows up if you click help on a node, and it shows you in Canvas help related to a node. Package authors can also add this to their packages as Markdown. I haven't done this yet because documenting things takes a very long time and I just haven't had a chance. But most of the out-of-box nodes should have this in there for you. Other extensions available are the workspace references. This is finally reaching a maturity that it works really well, and we'll see that here in a little bit. And it's really nice to be able to see what packages are in use in your graph. So I'm glad to see that still included. Graph properties, these were in Dynamo 2.12, and we've been wanting this feature for a very long time. We're able to serialize data within the Dynamo graph really nicely. So that's available to us. I look forward to using this on graphs that we ship out to people even. So this is a really, really cool feature, and I suggest you start adding all these properties to your graphs. We also have another extension that's been in there for a bit called Graph Status. Graph Status is kind of interesting, and this is actually how you interact with generative design graphs, to where it performs a process called linting. So it checks the graph for criteria to see if it matches the criteria it needs to run in a certain workflow. In this case, generative design. So that's in there. This isn't a video where I'll show how to set up a generative design graph, but we'll have videos on that soon. And yeah, that's another option in there. So another thing with this workflow is I do want to rename views in the project browser in Revit. So in order to do that, I would search for a node called set name, and we'll see that in out of the box Dynamo, we can set room names or space names. We can't set names of any other elements. You could do that through set parameters sometimes, but it's less consistent. I like to use a custom package for this, and that custom package is called Clockwork. So let's go ahead and install a package and see what that looks like. So we'll go to packages, search for a package. This process is pretty much the same as it's been the whole time. It looks a little nicer now. It has a few more features added and UI things, which is really nice. So keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and search for Clockwork. And the good thing with Clockwork is he has a 2.x version. It's a little different to use in this version, and we'll see that here in a second, but this one does work. So we'll go ahead and click install. It warns you that you're going to install that package, and it also tells you that you're installing something with Python scripts. Clockwork is a Python-based package, so that's okay. It does use an older version of Python, and we'll see that here in a few seconds as well. So that is now installed, and what we're going to go ahead and do is clear that search, and we need to add a prefix to these view names too. So in this case, for naming views, I want to get the view name. So we'll do element name. We'll insert a prefix. And we'll just make it a simple prefix of E for existing. That's something that I've seen quite a bit. That's pretty common. Cool. And now we have that built out. We haven't made any changes yet though. That's where Clockwork comes into play. So if we search once again for set name, Clockwork's node now shows up because it's installed. Another side note here is Clockwork has a really great icon. So let me place this node really quick. The new UI got rid of all the great icons that we had here in the library. And that's kind of a bummer. When Dynamo 2.0 came out, all the package authors were wondering how we add those icons. And I started to make the connection that the top node in your package serializes that icon and surfaces it to the library. So a lot of package authors started adding a node in their package called about that just surfaced the icon to the top for you. That's how Rhythm works. That's how Archilab works. And no more icons. So it's kind of a bummer. We just have this bracket now. It's okay, but yeah, those icons, they were really nice looking and now they're all gone. So kind of interesting. So in this case, I want to rename those views. So I will kind of tile this down a bit. We're going to change to run manual because I don't want to rename the views in a loop and get stuck. We'll rename it and we'll set that to our element. So I almost connected it to the wrong element there. We're going to hit run and we'll see that it says it ran. It's outputting elements, but it's also outputting a null value in the case of Clockwork. So this isn't ideal because it didn't rename any of the views in the project browser. It didn't give me any warnings either. So what's going on here? Let me go ahead and hit save. In this case, once I hit save, my workspace references shows up and tells me that I'm missing a package. By nature, Clockwork doesn't have any dependencies. That's just how Clockwork is. It's a very clean package. But with Dynamo 2.13, we have to install the IronPython engine independent of Dynamo. So Dynamo now ships with, let me verify, CPython as the engine. A lot of these older packages that have been around for a while are using IronPython still. And that's fine. It's just we now have a second consideration to update the package to CPython or to install the engine after the fact. Another thing that I want to point out is this is called Dynamo IronPython. So if you were to go to the package manager and actually search IronPython, there are two versions. So IronPython. When I was testing these workflows, I actually installed this one by accident. I thought it would work and it prevented me from installing the correct one. And it was just this whole mess. As you can see, it is grayed out. So I think that's the indicator. It will still let you install it though, because I did it. So at this point, you'll just install it with workspace references. Once you install it, you're good to go. As a package author, it is a bit tough to chase a lot of these changes. So Dynamo makes really big changes like this from time to time. 1.3 to 2.0 was a huge change in file format. And it was very difficult for package authors to have to kind of transition. That's why Clockwork has two versions. He has a 1.x version and a 2.x. So with that in mind, with this change for IronPython to CPython, be nice to package authors. They'll get them updated. Install this with the workspace references, this install specified, and you'll be good to go. Being a package author is something where you're always chasing changes, and just be nice to them and it's all going to be all right. Your graphs will work. Once you install this, it just works. So that's kind of a thought for you. All right, with that installed, if we go ahead and hit run, we will see that the Clockwork node has ran. Sometimes you have to restart Dynamo with that change too, just to keep that in mind. But the Python node ran and all my floor plan views were renamed. Clockwork now works in this version and I'm set for the foreseeable future. If it were me and I was a BIM manager at a firm, I would deploy this Dynamo IronPython package to all my users through some kind of login script or something like that. So keep that in mind. That one's a big one and I wanted to make everyone aware of that because pretty big change there. Another thing that you're going to start to see is these node sizes are different. They're a little bit bigger. That's one of those things that we're going to have to live with for a bit. You can start to clean up the node layout. If you select a group and you press Control L, it cleans up the items within the group. It works all right. I don't use it all the time. I tend to clean up things myself. So as you upgrade graphs, just kind of keep an eye out for that as well. It's one of those things that as the change happens, we'll have to get used to it. So we'll save this. This graph's working. And I want to highlight a few of the other nodes that we get. So there are quite a few new nodes in Dynamo as well. A big section of nodes is under the units category. So if we go to units, we have all these different unit types available to us. With Revit 22 came a change with units that incorporated Forge units. Those are now being tied into Dynamo in some ways. Some of the coolest portions of this, though, are these utility nodes as a result for the units nodes. So we have this parse expression by unit. If we place that node, and I just place a string node, and I type in something like 1 foot in a natural way, we can actually start to convert this to a target unit. So if I go to foot, I know that I want to convert that to feet, so it will just do that for me. So if I do 1 foot dash 6, it starts to know that as well. So that's another thing that's really cool that they recently added. So that's a cool welcome addition. I'm not going to go over every unit node that was added, but they are there for you to use. Another new feature is the ability to hide wires. So let's say these were inputs that I wanted a user to modify. You can actually hide the wires and kind of drag these over to the side. This is really cool because this starts to allow us to have like a little input group in the beginning of the graph with the wires hidden. Hiding wires on a whole scale basis has been there for a long time under view connectors, but this is on a node by node basis. I do say use this sparingly though, don't go too crazy. If you right click, you can show the wires from the viewport and so on as well. So that's another thing. So really exciting changes there. A lot of different visual things primarily. That's going to be the biggest thing to get used to is how visually different it is. And this Python thing, those are like the big takeaways. You will get warnings for all this Python migration, and you're going to have to dismiss those or ignore them. So that is another one. Once again, be nice to package authors about it. So yeah, there it is. A whole lot of visual changes in Dynamo. I think they're all welcome changes. It's going to be a bit of a transition process. And what's interesting is we have a few conferences coming up. We have Built coming up in June, AU coming up later this year, and we're going to see handouts with a whole lot of different looking nodes in it. Pretty interesting thing. I encourage you to go through and try to upgrade some of your graphs, see how they come along. If you run into any issues, get on the forums and post those updates. If you can share a graph, it's always nice to help out that way and just kind of see how you make along. I hope this video helped out. I hope you learned a few new features available. Comment below what your favorite feature is, and thanks for checking out this video.